Welcome to the Teamcity setup tutorial of Farmion. Today we're going to show you how to set up a project in Teamcity, which is our preferred continuous integration system. We're going to base it on HR4 project, which we already have in Teamcity. We're basically going to clone that project and make our new test project out. Okay, so you should be able to have the URL. So let's go. We're going to go to Teamcity and it's farmion.nl, port 8080. And we're going to log in there. It takes a while. Here we go. So now we're in Teamcity. And we'll don't go into the basics of Teamcity because you can find it in the documentation. We're going to find the HR4. Because we're going to clone that project. Well, here it is, for V4. It consists of basically 4 sub-projects, build scenarios that we have. Let's go to the first one. This is the build test. So every time you as a programmer check in, basically this sub-project will run and run into unit tests. And you will quickly find out if you did something wrong. And this test is the nightly build. It's gonna run at 11 o'clock at night, or it will run when you put nightly in your comments. Basically what this does is an extension of the unit test that we saw above, but it also does the coverage. So if you should have above 90% coverage, this test is actually checking that for you. And it's a bit slow, so you shouldn't do too much nightlies. The third one is the nightly release build. This one will basically build it in release mode. The other ones will build it in debug mode. It will put all the files in the V release map, so it can be used by others also. So then basically this version of the product is done when this step is running. This step also doesn't run any unit test or coverage. It's just running it as a release. So that's basically what it does. Then we go to the fourth step, final step. Basically what this does is it will deploy the Octopack package which was made in the nightly release build step to the test server, and it will probably also run some integration test on the test server. That's it. So now we're gonna clone the project. So we're gonna go to the project, we're gonna go to the edit product settings, and then we're gonna select this project, and we're gonna basically go to the actions, and we're gonna copy the project. Now what you see here is basically the new name what we want to choose. We can also change the root project to sub project. We're not going to do that, so we're now going to create a new name. We're going to say test project. What you can see is that it changes also the ID and some stuff in the underneath where we see the projects of the sub projects that are in there. It changes all the IDs and names there. So we leave this selected, so we're going to make a full copy with users, agents and other settings. Press copy. And here we go, we have a new project set up, test project. It automatically created the new project ID, test project. We leave it like it is. Now we go to the VCS roots, because what we did, we made a clone of a project which has some garbage in there. So we're going to clean that up by going to the VCS root. As you can see here, we have now 6 VCS roots, but we only need 1, which is the HR4 root. So we're going to remove the other roots, like so. And now we're going to edit the HR4 root. I'm going to change the name to test project and regenerate the ID. I'm going to change the URL We're going to use a non-existing URL, so we're going to get some errors, but doesn't really matter. Normally you put here your SVN URL for your project. Username and password we can leave, and then we save it. So we now set up the SVN root, and that's done. So now we're going to go back to the project. Oh, we have to go to the edit project. Okay, so now what we need to change is the 4 sub of build configurations of our project. So what we need to do is we're going to start with the first one, the build test. Like so. We're going to change the name. I'm going to regenerate the ID, of course, save it, so that part is done. Check the version control settings. Well, they look okay. We have to change the checkout directory. So we're going to change it to test project. We also leave the clean files, it's handy, but that's done. Then we go to the build steps. Well, we basically have 2 steps. We have the solution, the Visual Studio solution step, and the end unit test. I'm going to go to the Visual Studio step. Change the name of the project solution file that we want to build. This can be named anything, of course, the one that you use in the solution file. And we're going to change the step name. And we're going to save. And you notice that these steps are running in debug mode, not in release mode. We're going to go to the end unit. We have to change the test that we're going to run, because of course we don't want it to sit stuck at the higher. So we change that like so. There's no coverage run here, it's just the unit test is going to be run, and it's going to give false or true back if it's going to pass the unit tests. So we leave the coverage like it is. You can also put some excludes and stuff like that, but it's not necessary for this project. Trigger for this build will run the build when you do check-in in Subversion. Now we go back to the project. So we now set up the test project, build test, as you can see. And we're now going to move on to the next build. And that's the nightly build with the unit test coverage. And this build is going to run at night at 11 o'clock, or when you do a nightly as check-in. So we just changed the options like we did in the other project, in the build test run. Let's change the names, solution files. Still in debug mode, this is done. We changed also the end unit. We changed the unit test like in the other one, because it's going to run the same unit test. Could be that it's running a different unit test here, but this project runs the same. Difference here is use .cover to measure the coverage, and it has some filters in there what we don't want to cover during the test. You can change that here with types. We're going to leave it like it is, because it's, for example, use only. But if you put another project in here, you need to change that. So then these steps are done. Then we go to the triggers. You can see here that it only does it when you do a command nightly, or at 11 o'clock at night it's going to run, and only, of course, when there are changes in the code. The failure is we're going to change this. We're going to say, okay, we want to have more than 90%, so anything less, it's going to trigger actually a failure on the build. And we have the build features, which is basically putting the version number to the DLLs. This is the assembly patcher. Every project will have one of these. Now we go back. So this one is now configured. So now we're going to move on to the nightly release build. This is basically going to run after the coverage build, and it's going to make everything in release mode. So optimize it, code optimization, etc. Then we're going to go to the version control settings. Will be the same, of course, but we just check it. We change the path here, very important. And then we go to the solution file. Only one step here, and you can see here we change the projects, and you see here clean rebuild and release mode. and something else underneath Octopack. So it's gonna create a Octopack for Octopus deploy, so we can deploy that package to our environments. Trigger is done when the nightly build is successfully done. Only then it will run. And this is of course needed when that is failing. You don't want to make a Octopack. I'm gonna change the deploy to test. This one is actually gonna put it on the test server, like so. Generate the ID again, of course. It doesn't have any version control settings. It does triggers after the nightly release. So this is the final step. If all the previous steps are failing, it's not going to do anything here. It needs dependencies to the code of the nightly release build. Very important this, in order to build the package. And eventually you have the Octopack's deploy part of the build step. There's some Teamcity properties, but it's all okay. And you need to define the Octopus deploy project in here. And also where to deploy to. You can also deploy to exploitation and live, but most of the time we deploy to testing. Another feature that's really important here is the wait for deployment to complete. If you want to run integration test on your deployment, you want to wait until that is done, because if there's an error, you want to show that in Teamcity that it failed. So when you enable this, Teamcity is basically going to wait for that to complete and then give you the feedback if it went okay or not. We save it and we go back to test project, and that's basically the project setup. Go to the project home, see some errors, but that's because the subversion path doesn't exist. This is basically it, how to set up a project. That should help you in the future setting up projects for the build server. On the next video we're going to explain you how to do the Octopus deployment package.